Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So after 3 very informative speeches, I think I have to tweak my speech a little bit to tell you a story. So I thought that I would move out of the structure that which I brought in, but will tell you a story about why Sri Lanka. Honorable Governor of Sri Lanka Central Bank, Nandalal Veerasinghe, Ambassador Professor Arush Akure, Professor Disa Bandara, Chairman of Securities and Exchange Commission, Mr. Ray Abeywadana, and Mr. Alex Gunawardena, the rest of the distinguished invitees, investors, and people who has a very strong interest in your own investment portfolios as well as Sri Lanka. So it's a great privilege to sit in front of you and deliver this speech for 2 reasons. Because when I studied in University of Sri Jayadratnapura, my finance, professor was my teacher for corporate governance and stock markets. So I remember your research, does stock markets take a random walk, right? So again, and at the same time, so I was a person who fought on streets since 2018, 19, and till 2022 to get rid of a very strong corrupt system out of this country, out of my country, and now being able to play a leading role in economic transformation. So it's a great privilege to be here and address you all. And if you really look at the story of stock markets, it should and it must reflect the real economy of the country. There has been always a debate whether the stock markets does reflect the true assets underlying, and does the underlying assets perform in line with the stock markets. I'm happy to say, if you look at last few years, we are seeing there's an alignment. The performance of the stock market is also reflective in the industries and the real economy as well. And if you really look at Sri Lanka, we have been always uniquely positioned for growth. Across, comparative to countries where we are standing today, to countries like Vietnam, South Korea, India, in the region, we've always had the opportunity, but we never took that opportunity. There were a few reasons which we couldn't do it. But the uniqueness still remains. One is our location advantage, which nobody can acquire from us. We've always been politically neutral, and we will ensure that we will be like that, so we can deal with any country in the world with good heart and good diplomacy. And we always had the best people and talent. So Sri Lankans across the world, even here, you guys are performing and showing the caliber and the strength and the resilience of the people of our country. And always had a unique natural landscape that can attract anyone and also make their decisions to even to live in Sri Lanka when they're old. So with these unique positions, unique competitive advantages, why didn't we grow? So the real 3 reasons why we didn't grow is that we did not do the right reforms when it is required. Past 30 years, when other countries grew at a rapid pace, we were not able to do our reforms on trade, reforms on government, reforms on structure, reforms on agriculture, reforms on education, reforms on you name it. Any reform has been very weak and slow. Other big pieces for special investments and entrepreneurship and FDIs, the policy inconsistency has been a critical barrier. We've been changing our policies, not being able to predict what's going to take place, no fundamental roots to decide what's going to take place in the future also. So this policy inconsistency has been a big barrier. And also, it was combined with deeply rooted corruption. If you look at the IMF agreement, the first or the second para, it clearly says it's deeply rooted institutional corruption that led Sri Lanka into crisis. So at the end, all in all, we all are accountable, our parents are accountable, our leaders are accountable. We dragged ourselves into a destructive economic crisis. So from there onwards, why now? So basically from where we were, what has happened, to where we are today for the last 3 years is what's important today. So in 2022, citizens of our country rose up, spoke up, and fought, and kind of changed the system. And they wanted a change in the system, both economically and also politically. I think they've been able to do that, and we are thankful as a country to every citizen who stood up and rose for the occasion. Since Sri Lanka recovered from that point onwards, we have been able to stabilize our economy and now moving into a rapid growth pace. When I say rapid growth pace, it's basically now reflective for the last 1 year, especially the stabilization has taken place, the numbers will speak for itself. And I don't have to talk about the numbers because you know the numbers as people in finance, and there's comparative numbers and targets that we can agree to. And also the strong government that people created, 2/3 majority, is a strong government that we can bring in legislation and stability to the country politically, so that it ensures that the people's desires are met over a long term. We are not looking at 5 years as a government, we are looking at 15 to 20 years of transformation. And we hope that people will really understand the changes that we are making are for the long run. And now our economy is predictable. That's what's more important for investments. We have our governor here who can talk to you about the predictability that we have been able to do. Now the policies are predictable because this government has a written manifesto, which I hope all of you should read, and I ask all of you to read, because every decision that we will take going forward will be based on that book. So that is predictability. And when it comes to the EFF program, the extended EFF program of IMF, it has brought us fiscal discipline, and economic indicators are very well forecasted. Even though we adjust these forecasts every quarter or every review, you can clearly say where Sri Lanka will be in 2030 and 2032. And as long as we follow that trajectory with those numbers, it's quite strong position for any investor because the numbers are already on the cards. So if you really look at the numbers that we've been looking at from the fiscal perspective and the macroeconomic perspective, both 2024 and 2025, we have already beaten the targets. And the legal framework for investment is getting enacted and strengthened. I'll talk to you a little bit about at the latter part of my speech. And the digital transformation is real. Now, if you come to Sri Lanka, if you get copped, you can pay that penalty online. That's a big transformation in Sri Lanka, right? So with that slightest thing, the GovPay has made all the government transactions to happen online going forward. QR's been enabled. We are thankful to Central Bank. Now, any payment less than 5,000 can be paid without any cost. So these are changes that are tangibly taking place in our country on digital transformation, which has not happened for the last 30 years. And the land policy is getting clear, which is one of the biggest bottleneck in investments. The underlying assets, I mean, not the stock exchange, the underlying investments on entrepreneurship and industries, land policy has been a big problem. So if you really look at what we have as tangibles, the private credit is growing, and the government borrowing has been minimized, and it will continue to do so. If you go on the forecast, government borrowing will continue to be very minimal, and the private sector will have the capital to invest. And as clearly mentioned, capital market is doing its best, and the FDIs are getting attracted. So we have crossed 1.1 billion worth of FDIs in 2025, and across with rest of the investors, we will be touching about 5 billion plus FDIs with the investments coming from bilateral partners and the portfolio, the funnel that we have in Port City as well. And again, the SOEs are getting restructured. There is not going to be any burden on the government. The two key SOEs which gave us trouble now being marked to market in terms of price adjustments. So the SOEs will not give any problem to the fiscal management going forward. And central bank is playing a pivotal role to ensure that our monetary policy is stable, our interest rates, inflation, and exchange rates are stable and predictable. And with that, again, the option for investors is mostly now going to be the equity market because the bonds will not yield 32% any in future. And when it comes to acts, as I said, the Investment Promotion Act, Investment Protection Act, Public-Private Partnership Act, and the SOE Management Act. All four of these acts will be enabled before April 2026. So these are strong reforms Sri Lanka is going into. So when I talk about underlying assets, your portfolios in the stock exchange also reflects various sectors in Sri Lanka. And why these sectors are important? Because these sectors are absolutely growing. So when it comes to our exports, there's a huge potential on exports, both goods and services. You would see the momentum, especially agriculture sector is moving more than 20%, and the IT sector is doing very well. So if you really look at the export basket of Sri Lanka and the strategy that we are going to deploy for the next 5 years, you can pick your horses in export-oriented businesses in the stock market. And Port City is enabling Sri Lanka to become the next financial hub. We want Sri Lanka to be the next Dubai or Hong Kong. And obviously it's going to happen with the tractions that we are getting. So already there's a 3.9 billion worth of inquiries that has come to Port City. And Colombo is positioned to be hub of everything. So we have Ironman coming again on February. We have all the events, the global events are being planned in Sri Lanka. The newly built hotels are full of events. If you really come to Colombo for a few days, you would see this with your own eyes. And the tourism is boosting, and we want to go up the value chain in tourism, not in numbers, but in value. And all our ports are demanding capacity. So anybody investing in the ports, the Colombo, the Hambantota, as well as Trinco, these three ports going to be the key three ports in the region in the next 10 to 15 years. And of course, we are bringing in the mineral policy this month, which we never had a mineral policy for the country. And the gems and the minerals will also, we are looking at more than $1 billion exports potential in a very short time. Again, the startups and SMEs are doing well in the sense that we are putting up a framework under the ministry. These SMEs never had an ecosystem of support, which will be a 11-pillar framework that will be launched in February, so that ensure our startup ecosystem and the SMEs are taken care of. And these SMEs are what that's going to be your IPOs going forward. I think Stock Exchange and the Exchange Commission is working very hard to bring the SMEs into the capital market. These are the ones which has many high potential. And I would again urge the investors here, don't wait till they come to IPO, go and help them to be formal and support them to be ready for listing. That is the biggest barrier that we are having today. And the digital and tech industry is going global, so we have a very strong tech industry, and there are good startups which need capital, and we hope some of these IT firms will also get listed as we go along. So as I come to the closure of my last 1 minute, so they say sooner the better. So as correctly, if you really look at, the trajectory is clear, the stability is there, reforms are happening, there's not going to be corruption anymore in our country with our government in play. So the assets are still undervalued. If you take land, if you take the businesses, if you take any opportunities, now at this point is undervalued. So you have the greatest opportunity to get there. So it's what's in front of you is the next best economic transformation in the region. We talk about Vietnam, we talk about South Korea, we talk about the turnaround of India, we talk about how Dubai came up, and its next is going to be Sri Lanka. And around here you have government officials sitting who is following the policy of the new government, zero tolerance for corruption. So you can engage with all of us, any of us, and there will be no other discussions other than the process that you need to follow. And the land policies are getting cleared. As I said, it's cheap now, so get in fast. So that is where you will have the greatest opportunities. And in terms of all this in play, with all the institutions are doing well, it's my invite. It's not a gamble. It's the stock market of Sri Lanka is not a gamble anymore. It's basically that you will be part of the journey as a strong stakeholder. That is what we invite you for, to really strengthen our capital market by being partners of it, not only looking at short-term small gains of capital that you would look for. And again, just as I end, just want to inform you about the expo that's going to happen after 14 years. Sri Lanka Expo 2026 will be in June 18th to 21st. So I invite all of you to be part of it. Bring everybody along who knows. And we are looking for about 1,300 plus delegates to come and see not only our exports, see our beauty of our motherland and the opportunities that exist in Port City, the ports, the infrastructure, the private-public partnership opportunities, all that. So bring along investors and traders in June to Sri Lanka. And again, lastly, I would again invite all of you to be part of the capital market and the bond market that's going to grow. And I'm pretty sure we will also move into futures and rest of the exchanges that Sri Lanka should have as becoming a financial hub, a politically neutral financial hub in the region. And we are very positive as a government, and we are strongly driving policy reforms. And I urge all of you to help us on the education reforms, because that is what's going to change Sri Lanka for good. Thank you very much. We'll meet up leisurely, and please do connect with the government officials, and we can trust the government now more than ever before. Thank you.